was seeing was basically leadership failure, to the point that the lives of the guys standing next to me were literally, from what I could see, in danger of something seriously going wrong and somebody being killed.
Infamous U.S. Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl finally speaking out, appearing in Season 2 of the podcast Serial, defending his desertion, insisting it was his intention all along to expose flaws in the Army's, basically the Army system, a man overboard trying to catch up with missing soldiers. And you heard him say it was bad leadership, and he was there to protect his comrades. Yeah, right. Let's turn to our political panel. Skyping in from Nashville, Tennessee, the chief political correspondent for USA Radio Network, Scottie Nell Hughes, and from Newsmax, New York, noted radio and TV commentator Ellis Henican. So, Scottie, is there anything about Bowe Bergdahl's story that rings true in your mind?
Not at all, especially when I hear that segment that you just posted. Granted, I'll say, no, let me take that back. He did say true that there was lack of leadership, that the people were being set up for failure. The problem is he's the one, for the gentleman that died when they went out looking for him, he's the one that caused that failure. And then he goes on to say he really was just trying to be like Jason Bourne. He wanted to be a movie character. This whole thing is messed up, but the most important part that we're missing, how much did he get paid to do this?
Well, and that's another subject. Right now, I just want to deal with what many of us believe to be the despicable and dastardly conduct of an American deserter. Ellis, don't tell me you're going to defend this guy.
Well, you know, I have some pretty good evidence on my side, it turns out, including the entire United States military, who have decided not to proceed with the harsh charges, JD, that you and some of your buddies were insisting that would be held against this guy. When you really look at the thing, away from all this souped-up ideology, what you have is a very troubled young man. And one of the great things about the United States military is we do not leave our wounded on the battlefield, even when the wounds are not visible, and they're psychological wounds and PTSD.
Oh, wait a minute.
Messed up kid who we owe something to, frankly.
Scottie, go ahead.
Him? Are you kidding me? We owe him? You have got to be ashamed for saying that. First of all, Benghazi, we left men on the field and they died. Now you're going to sit there and try to defend this guy because he's a boy in trouble. You know what? The problem with this was we were too politically correct that we had to put him in, that we could not say no to him if he was so mentally messed up. He is not a hero. He is a coward. And now we have 5 terrorists that are out on the loose, possibly killing more of our soldiers because of our government and our failed leadership of the commander-in-chief. The military why does the military authorities agree with me and not you? They investigated this case 6 ways to Sunday and decided that all that overblown rhetoric simply wasn't supported by the evidence. They agreed with me. Yeah, no. You got to separate the authorities. These are the same authorities, the same leadership that refuses to call a terrorist that happened at Fort Hood and what happened last week until yesterday. That's separate. These are
so the whole military is in on the conspiracy.
No, wait a minute. Let me just get in here too. I appreciate the discussion. I'll take it back to exactly where it comes from. Military men salute when the commander-in-chief sends an order, and I guarantee you, after that despicable White House celebration, when you had his unhinged dad speaking in Urdu with his full beard, with this president in pursuit of multiculturalism being a great thing, you know this was there it goes, right on cue. There's Ellis with the racist charge, right on cue, Ellis.
No,
I guess we all ought to shut up and not call a deserter a deserter. It's despicable.
JD, you're accusing the generals, the admirals, I guess, maybe the colonels of all.
No, I'm accusing the lawyers who understand that they've got careers at stake. And let me tell you what, you take a look at the generals and the admirals who have been dismissed. You and I know what's going on in that Pentagon in terms of cherry-picking officers who are politically correct. The hell with defending the country. And the problem rests with the commander-in-chief and the command structure, not the fact that there are Americans who went out to try and find this guy and who died and who were sacrificed. And what's worse, what Scottie said about the situation where you now have 5 terrorists back in the terrorism business. Not to mention the old cook for Osama bin Laden, who's back out now. Scottie, last word in this segment, then I want to bring you both back to talk presidential politics. Go ahead.
Last word. I am married to a United States Army former captain. I tell you, he was not in support. In fact, he felt betrayed by the leadership and by this Army's justice system.
I hope he's not in the conspiracy too, huh?
There's no conspiracy. It's called the truth, and you can't handle it.
Evidence, it's called. Evidence, and the military agrees with me.
Showing that the commander-in-chief has used his leadership time and time again to target dissenters. And guess what? The military is not dumb. They're not going to go up against their commander-in-chief. They're better than that.
I tell you what, gang, we obviously have had a passionate discussion on this issue. When we come back, maybe some more passion, but certainly the spectacle of presidential politics and the latest polls. We'll continue this discussion right after this timeout, so stay with us. As promised now, presidential politics and the latest polling, specifically the poll from the CBS News New York Times survey showing Donald Trump with a double-digit lead among Republicans. Trump at 35%, Ted Cruz taking over second place at 16%, Ben Carson at 13%, Marco Rubio at 9%, Rand Paul at 4%, and Jeb Bush at 3%. Now, we should mention this poll was conducted before Donald Trump said that we need to temporarily ban the immigration of Muslims into the country. Let's welcome back the panel and go first to Ellis Henican. Doesn't look like Donald Trump is being slowed down. Your take on the Trump Express?
Not one bit. If anything, it seems to be helping him with this narrow slice of America. I got to say, every day we're closer to him getting the nomination. I would not rule it out, JD.
Well, it is, to be fair on this, Scottie, Nell, Ellis is talking about concerns, and nearly two-thirds of American voters, when asked in this poll, said they're frightened or concerned about the prospect of a Trump presidency. Is that a candid answer they're giving pollsters, and will that be a problem for the Donald?
No, well, that's the thing right now, JD. Regardless of how you want to look at polls, whether you believe them or not, the thing we need to realize is that the top three candidates are conservatives. Now, granted, Donald Trump is beating by 20 points his latest rival, which is Ted Cruz, who's also a conservative. But for people to say that, you know, the two-thirds of the country aren't going to necessarily vote for the Republican candidate if they're Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, that's absolutely ludicrous, because it's showing America has woken up and the majority are starting to speak and realize that they want to take back this country because of the failed leadership of what we have now.
So, Ellis, you said kind of like with that Cheshire Cat grin, you would welcome the Trump nomination. You think that the public is going to vote for the Democrat in droves. Hillary Clinton, yet another Benghazi email coming out that is being called the smoking gun. Do you think she's just going to sail through that? 30 seconds.
No, I think if Donald Trump is the nominee, she absolutely will. Listen, who has he not offended yet? I mean, you expect him to get a lot of Muslim votes, maybe a lot of Mexican votes, a lot of female votes. I mean, group after group he says horrible things about. Highly unlikely they're going to support him in November.
Well, we may disagree with you, Ellis, from time to time, but we find you perfectly acceptable. And ditto to Scottie, Nell,
I love
Hughes.
You too, JD.
Always great to have you all with us. We appreciate the passionate discussions. Now, from the way they see it to the way you really see it, what you've been telling us via social media. First up, it's Alan who writes, when a physician examines a patient, they look at the symptoms, then determine the cause. The same procedure needs to be followed by the government and media. The symptom is Islamic terrorism running wild. The cause is political correctness. Next, we hear from Johnny, who's got a fairly simple message. Islamic terrorism is the problem, not Donald Trump. And finally, Roland checks in. Here's what he has to say. Donald Trump is starting to make people feel good about themselves again. People are starting to feel good about America, too. The more the establishment and the press of both parties try to tear him down, the more galvanized his supporters become. I now have hope that we can save our country. Our friend Ellis Henican might take issue with that. At any rate, we'd love to get your comments, and here's where you send them: to newsmaxtv.com/comments. My comments, as always, when we conclude: stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.